Director of Health and Clinical Partnerships. So, Dr. Pepin, if you want, you can get started now.
And then actually, real quick, one more thing. Right after we hear from Dr. Pepin, we also have a really short little introduction from Ariana. She's actually on the USG board, and she has an opportunity that she would like to share with you guys. So stick around for a few minutes after to hear about a really cool opportunity.
You want to do that now to make sure we don't lose it?
Oh, sure, Ariana. Do you want to go right now?
Sure. Okay, let me turn on my audio. Sorry. All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Ariana. I'm the Director of Health and Wellness for undergraduate student government right now, and I'm starting an initiative that's going to work to promote menstrual equity on all of the campuses. So what this is going to look like is trying to find a donor who will fund fully enough like menstrual equity products like tampons and pads to have everyone on campus and at all the dorms and the consecutive like corresponding apartments near on campus. Also, this will include trying to get condoms sold at the pod and hopefully trying to pass a policy change bill to hold Plan B products at all pods at a reduced rate, which is an initiative that's actually mirroring something where they already do at Harvard and Stanford. So I'm basically looking for any sort of volunteer. Anyone who's interested, just feel free to email me. I'll drop it in chat. If you guys want to get involved, I mean, it's going to be pretty, we've already started an Excel spreadsheet with a bunch of donors. I would just assign you to something and you would be able to give me your input and ideas. And on top of that, if you ever needed like a rec letter or I need to like sort of like volunteer hours, I'd be sure to sign off on that. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Nice to meet you guys.
Thanks, Ariana. Great work. And you know, the menstrual equity is taking off in so many campuses. So thank you for your efforts. That's great. Great.
Oh, thank you.
So, you know, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm really thrilled. You know, I've been very involved in the group on women in medicine and science and all sorts of women in medicine stuff. And since I got to ASU about 2 years ago, I have tried to break into the provost's office to be more involved with pre-meds. It's been really challenging. So I really appreciate this. So I thought I would briefly kind of tell you my background. And I'm very happy to go deep into it, but I don't want to talk the whole time, right? So I'll talk to you a bit and then open it up and have you, I don't know, help guide me to what is interesting and helpful for you. So I'm Sue Pepin. You know, when I was an high school, I had an inkling that medicine might be something I was interested in. I took a biology class where we did some anatomy and I thought it was really great. And when I went to college, I was pre-med and that was fortified through college. And you know, I applied to med school. So I went to University of California, San Francisco, not being a Californian. So that was a miracle in its own right. I don't know how it happened. And I thought about, you know, I wanted to be a primary care doc. And when I did surgery, I loved it. And that surprised me. It was at a time, I don't know if you've heard of Fran Conley and the Boys Club, but you know, the neurosurgeons, I thought about neurosurgery because I was very interested in neuroscience, and that came from my previous degrees. And a female neurosurgeon said, no, you should look at ophthalmology because it's really exquisite surgery, but you're not in the OR for 12 hours at a time. Now, I've been in the OR for 12 hours at a time, but ended up going into ophthalmology. I did my first fellowship in pediatric ophthalmology, joined the faculty at UCSF. Hard place to raise kids. So I will tell you in terms of work-life balance, I had my first during my second year of medical school and my second a day before I graduated. So I was breastfeeding her during the Hippocratic Oath. I'm telling you way too personal things, but I hope you don't mind that. I had my third as a resident. So I stayed at University of California, San Francisco for my residency, did my first fellowship there in pediatric ophthalmology. Really, you know, I should have bought a house back then, but it seemed impossible. If we had, you know, I'd be a billionaire now. But went to Dartmouth in New Hampshire, better place to raise kids, was recruited there. There I'll tell you, I had my fourth daughter as an attending, but was very involved in medical student and resident teaching. I actually did a second fellowship at Harvard during that time. Dartmouth actually supported me during that fellowship because there were no neuro-ophthalmologists in that part in northern New England. And actually then had my fifth daughter, I was pregnant during the fellowship and had her back at Dartmouth. So I'm intermixing personal and professional stuff. Was in academic medicine for 15 years. Was then being recruited back to University of California, San Francisco to run surgical subspecialties for UCSF, but got a call from a search firm, asked me to look at a job which was about the overall health of communities. So I came to Arizona, recruited to run, some of you might or might not have heard of the Piper Trust. So I was president there for 4+ years and got to know Dr. Crow and was really missing students, was missing academics, the academy. And I came to ASU and a new position he created that he wanted. He didn't create it for me, but so I now oversee health and clinical partnerships for Arizona State University. So that's the short story. And now I want to go back to sort of thinking about medicine and training and how to be helpful. That gives you an overview of where I've been. And I can keep, rambling, but I know we only have an hour. So I might open it up if, Romney, you think that's appropriate for questions to help guide the conversation to be helpful.
Absolutely.
I will say one other thing. During my time, just to put a mark on it, I was Dean for Diversity and Inclusion for 5 years at Dartmouth. I also was on the Group on Medicine and Science in the AAMC for over 5 years. It was in that group. So I didn't tout this, but I've worked quite heavily. I've been a member of AMWA, but in promoting policies and practices for women in medicine. I also was really fortunate to get supported to be something called ELAM, which you guys aren't going to know about, but it's called Executive Leadership in Academic Medicine. It's a national program to support women to become deans in medical schools. And I did that back in 2010, 11. And I'm still involved in that. I'm now a advisor for that program. So very much at my core to support other women and each other in medicine, not just academic medicine, but to support, women.
I have a question. What does your typical day look like in ophthalmology?
So in ophthalmology, my typical day is about, and I've moved on to executive positions, so I'm backing up some. About 3 days a week, I would be in the OR. About 6:30, I'd get to the OR. 2 of the 3 days were in ambulatory care settings, and 1 day was in the hospital. So it was more orbital, more significant, not more significant, but more acute patients that needed hospitalization. So about 3 half days a week were filled with the OR. 2 half days were filled with procedures that were in the office. So we do a lot of lasers in ophthalmology. So that was that. I got 1 half day to think about research and do that sort of thing. And the rest of the days were very, very busy clinics, literally 40 to 50 patients in a half day. Overlaying that, I was teaching residents and medical students. So that was my typical week, if those half days make sense, because we do break ourselves up into half days.
I had a follow-up question on that. So when you come back home, would you have like a lot of paperwork afterwards? Because I know my dad is a physician and he comes back home and he sits for hours on the computer doing paperwork. So what was that like as an ophthalmologist?
Yeah. Well, it's a really good point, and we need to fix the system because, I had a lot of kids, and I would try very much when I wasn't on call, because that was a whole nother kind of scenario. But I'd get home and I'd want to participate, be with the girls, make dinner, eat. And then when that was done and they were off doing things, there would be an incredible time where I was trying to get through my charts for the night on Epic. Prior to that, but I most remember Epic. We were early adopters of Epic. When midnight, didn't dictate or not dictate, but put in your notes for things like lasers on the same date. It was a huge hassle. So I would spend 3 hours plus trying to beat the deadline of midnight 5 days a week. So I relate to your dad. Yeah, no, it was very rough. I was burning out. It's challenging, the demands of the electronic medical record.
So as your patient load, I take it, so if you decrease your patient load, then I guess there's less notes, so there would be like more time to, hang or just relax at night. Is that right?
Yeah, but that's not an option. I mean, if you're in private practice, it's an option. But I was in academic, and all, our system is fee for service, so it depends on what you want to make. I was salaried, so my salary didn't, I wasn't dependent. I knew what it was on how many patients I saw, but the hospital needed to be, not in the red. And so every year, things would go up every year. You saw 40 a day last year, now you're going to say 50. So see 50. So yes, you're right. Your lifestyle could be better, but sometimes, unfortunately, what we don't think about when we go into medicine, where we think we're going to have autonomy, we actually don't. And there was possibility for autonomy when I went into it, because that was a while ago. Now there's no possibility, because you have to be in a group. You have to be in a major hospital system, or you won't survive. So.
Right. Thank you.
I have a question more about like your personal, like when you had your kid during your second year of medical school. How was that for you? How did you like balance having a kid and like still studying for school?
It was rough. And definitely I was a freak, because I'm, now it's not that, but I was fortunate in that I'd done well, and I had, honestly, I kind of kept it a secret. I don't recommend this, but my story was such that I actually went to grad school in England before medical school. So I deferred medical school. That's where I met my now husband. And he was actually in the Australian Air Force. So I was going to finish med school. We got engaged, but it got too painful, and decided during my first year, okay, we got married, and then we thought after med school, and then after my first year, we were like, no, we don't want to wait. So after we got engaged and decided to get married after my second year, and I went to Australia, where he was stationed, and this is like more details than you want, but as an Australian Air Force officer, we ended up getting pregnant, and I was there 18 months doing research and clinical stuff, but away from UCSF, and very much, worried, like, do I want to go back? As soon as I had you don't know, you have a kid, and you're like, what if I want to stay home? No, I wanted to go back. So came back to UCSF with a 6-month-old, and it was challenging, but I was fortunate to have a supportive spouse, and had done well enough. And even though there weren't many at all students that had children during medical school at the time. I kind of acted like I didn't have a kid, in the sense that during my clinical rotations, I didn't take any extra, because I didn't want to be seen as a burden or whatever. I'm not saying this is healthy, but went through, really wanted to have another one. So we kind of planned it, and luckily it worked out that we had a second, so that I had that magical 6 weeks before I started my internship, because there wasn't maternity leave for interns. So I had her the day before I graduated, luckily, and then had a little bit of time and then went on to internship. Anyway, it was incredibly challenging. And I think I've lost the point of your question by rambling about how difficult it was.
No, you answered it. It's like, we can see that it's like it was difficult, but you got through it. Like
you do get through it. And I think the point I'd want to say about that is that there's no particular route. You can plan, you can think about it, you can see what others do, but you don't know what your experience is going to be. And I would encourage you to have the confidence to say you can do what you need to do, whether you want to have kids or not, whether you have a partner, whether what that looks like. I would encourage you to say you can make it work. It's even better now, but it's not easy, on what you need, and not to have a feeling like I have to do it this way. I definitely have many friends that felt, I've got to do all these things and have a certain salary and I have to be at a certain stage before I have kids or not. But, sometimes you don't get to choose, right? And you don't know whether you have a partner or not, or how that happens. So having the confidence to say you can make it work, and not to let others make you feel you have to do it a certain way, because we have to take control of how we do things. It's been a very patriarchal, men have like a supportive spouse and they can do it because they don't have to worry about that. They've got someone supporting them. We have to change the system, and as we get more women leaders in medicine, I think it will get better. But do what you need to do.
I do have a question, because I know you from the Bio 394, the special topic from our Professor Compton, and I will participate in the survey too. Yeah, so I know that.
Awesome.
Yeah, yeah. So that's like a perfect fit. So I know that you get a degree, both degree from MD and MBH, and I've been wondering like what motivated you, or why did you choose that path, or like you just want to go with it, like you just like some like opportunity comes, so you just take it. Is any story behind, or like?
Yeah, there's a story there. I'll tell you my story. So, I'm kind of a primary care person, and yet I loved surgery, and eye surgery is exquisite. Like I love like the anatomy and the effect you have. I've done thousands of surgeries and made a really big impact. So that just drew me, and I realized in medical school that I really liked being sort of the end of the game, like the solution. So I thought, okay, I love primary care, and when I did some early leadership things with the AAMC, we would do these personality tests, and I'm as a surgeon, I'd be on the side of the room with the pediatricians and the primary care docs, and all the surgeons were, and I'm like, what are you doing over here? I was like, so that's sort of my nature. But how I, reconcile that, there's, I don't know, like I'm rambling too much. It's, I don't know, like help direct me again. Tell me, does that make sense?
Yeah, but like, just like, so do you do like dual program together, or just like do the MD first and you do the MPH later?
Yeah. So when I was in Australia, actually I had the opportunity to do the MPH, and just financially, I actually took a research fellowship there over it, and instead of pay, because I didn't have a lot of money.
Yeah.
Regret that. In med school, I really wanted that, but I started having kids, and I just couldn't justify another year of paying tuition. But I'd always wanted to do an MPH because the importance of public health and doing that. So when I was a faculty at Dartmouth, they have a very strong, the Dartmouth Institute MPH program, and every year one faculty member they give a scholarship to. And, you know, I have a lot of kids, and education's expensive, so I just couldn't, I wouldn't have done it, but I applied 3 times in a row to get this faculty scholarship, and finally I got it. And all the faculty worked full time and did the MPH over like 2, 3, 4 years. So I was thrilled to have the financial support so I could do my MPH. And I'm not saying you shouldn't take out the loans or do whatever, but I had a lot of financial responsibilities and the kiddos. So one thing that I really appreciated was having worked for many years and gotten the experience. I tell this story to myself, but having that experience made, and the break from school made me so motivated and so passionate about my MPH work as a student, and so appreciative because I had a full-time job and I was Dean for Diversity and Inclusion at the time. But having that experience, I feel my insight into what I was doing was powerful. So I just bring it up in that you don't necessarily have to do every degree back to back, because having the real world experience can help you bring maybe more to your graduate study, you know, your master's degree or something is one route. I mean, I really think I got more out of it personally because I wasn't burnt out. I was so eager to be doing the work. And my capstone, I actually did with some faculty at UCSF, even though it was at Dartmouth, on working on how to work with primary care and subspecialties and how they communicate. And this was just when it was starting to be e-consults. And, you know, they still use it today. I'm really proud of that work of my capstone. So
that's cool, because I thought like you go directly with dual program, but now I can see your path and I feel like you're doing something very amazing, and I'm glad that you're here and telling us all like little detail, because I know it's a lot and sometimes we forget too. Yeah. So do you often work with like the public health, or you just kind of like work generally for women organization?
So I've always had connections with working on many, particularly women in medicine organizations. And that's sort of one of those, that's a stream that is extra work. So did full-time academic medicine and dean work at Dartmouth. When I came to Arizona, I actually ran the foundation in health and then got, you know, pulled over to ASU. And now I'm more in an executive position. So I'm not clinical. I do get involved at times, like with the Sero survey, but my task is to provide, we don't have a medical school at ASU, but we do so much in the health space. So providing the connective tissue across the university in the health space to elevate ASU. Like we are really the virtual academic health hub for Arizona because of all we do. So.
Oh, that's amazing. And that's good to know too. Yeah. Thank you.
Do you prefer the work you're doing right now, like in your executive position, or did you prefer like being like a clinical doctor?
That's a hard question from me, Ramya, because I would say that the most satisfaction I get as a physician was definitely in the clinical realm. And the day-to-day, you know, whether you can help them or, you know, improve sight, and I worked a lot in pediatrics and neuro-ophthalmology, which is a lot of brain tumors and multiple sclerosis, the satisfaction of just taking the time to help explain and getting patients to be on a different level was the most rewarding thing ever. So I miss that. But, you know, I did that for a really long time, and then affecting bigger change. So I love that one-on-one effect and change. But, you know, one of the things about medicine is you can evolve. It's a powerful degree to have an MD. And doing things at a bigger scale and trying to affect change. And, you know, again, I certainly wasn't bored, but you get really good at it. And then you have a long life and you want to take chances and spread yourself. So I don't regret that, but definitely the most rewarding thing is the one-on-one patient interactions. Yeah.
Thank you.
I have a little bit of a question. So you mentioned that you were involved with the Dartmouth Healthcare Policy Institute. They have like a program that's like a healthcare policy foundations that's run through the same institute that I was a part of and still a part of. And through this, I've like developed like a really strong curiosity for like that university in terms of like applying. What would you say like is your perspective on like Dartmouth as like a whole university that would be for like a medical education?
So when you say applying, you mean to the medical school?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, Dartmouth has some wonderful things about it. It's a very small medical school. So right now, I think it's 86 students per year. So, you know, that's a totally different thing than ASU, right? It's got a very strong faculty hospitals. So you're just going to get a really good education that you can tailor to your interests. I think all medical schools struggle with, you know, the demands of RVUs and what that looks like in terms of teaching students. But I think, you know, Dartmouth's done a good job with that. It just has a lot of strengths too. It doesn't have a law school, but it's got the business school if you wanted to explore in that direction. And, you know, the Dartmouth Institute with the various master programs that they have in healthcare delivery, the MPH, you know, health policy. There's a lot of opportunity there to, you know, I mean, med school can be not overwhelming, but is a big enough thing to just like get through that. But there are, if you're interested in sort of cross-fertilization, it's a good place to be. I don't know if that answers your question, but yeah.
No, it does, because I feel like as a student, I feel a little bit torn sometimes between wanting to go the physician route and practice and also being really interested in public health policy and seeing like where that can take you. And I feel like your story really enlightens what it could be like to do both. It's just kind of difficult as a student to gauge where, like, if a university affects that, or like if your career really can be both.
Right, right. But it's hard to, I certainly didn't have the perspective when I was at your stage, that careers don't have to be everything all at once. That it doesn't feel like it now because you've got all these hoops to jump through, you've got education to do, but knowing that, or do know that you can evolve and get the experience and the expertise, and then, you know, still be creative and move to other areas or bigger realms, or, you know, figuring out what you really enjoy and what you're good at is not something you just know, right? It evolves, and it evolves over the course of your career. So, yeah.
That's super helpful. Thank you.
Can you tell, I don't know if I missed the part where you're saying like, so you was in medical school and you're doing like fellowship and you got like the, like an opportunity to work for the executive director or something like that? Is it that right? It's just like opportunity comes, so you just take it and get involved, or you actually know someone and there's like a story that you decide to work for a women organization, like how that transition look like?
I was more, when I got involved, you know, so as a medical student, I actually applied and was like the medical student representative on the admissions committee at University of California, San Francisco. And then I did serve on the admissions committee at Dartmouth for pretty much my whole time there. And then when I took the role as Dean for Diversity, that got even bigger in the admissions. I'm actually now, I should say, full disclosure, on the committee, the U of A College of Medicine Phoenix. I'm actually faculty at U of A as well as ASU. But the role, it was more an interest, right? I wanted to be supported by women that were more senior to me, and I wanted to support women. And the Dean for Diversity, you know, part of that role really is supporting women, faculty as well as underrepresented in medicine. And the interest, I applied and was never selected. So I was on you guys probably know about the AAMC. I was on the group on women in medicine and science for the national committee for a long time. Only came off that committee when I came to Arizona to run the Piper Foundation. Have recently got re-involved in my role, and now I'm a faculty mentor for this ELAM program because it's important that we support each other. You know, Madeleine Albright said, you know, there's a special place in hell for women that don't support women, and that's how we have to change the culture of medicine, is to support each other, because there's no right route. And for women to have to feel they have to kind of become men, and not, it's set up for men with supportive, you know, spouse at home, we're not going to get as far as if we need to change the system, and we need to get men on board and have, you know, male advocates as well. So that's how it's more just an inclination. You know, somehow I ended up having 5 daughters, so I was that way anyway, but that, you know, it knocks it out of the park for me.
That's even amazing. Maybe they can follow your step.
You know, so far, 3, nobody's gone into medicine, but they're engineers and lawyers, and but it, you know, and I do reflect sometimes thinking, you know, was I just working too much and on call too much, that they think medicine is like, whoa, that's way too hard. And not academically, because these are smart kiddos, but
yeah, but I hope it's still like supportive women organization, because it's interesting, because right now I am also involved in like women research for STEM, is supporting like young girl and young women to like emphasize on the importance of women role in STEM field, and one of them to educate themselves as early as possible. So it's kind of clicked with what you're doing, and I was like, wow.
Yeah. Well, good for you. Keep that up.
And another question I have is, when you say that you both doing medical, like fellowship and everything, so most likely your work is working with computer, like communicating through email, or most likely like in-person work? Like, how do you balance it? Because I know like a lot of medical school, they stressing out about like USMLE and then national board tests. Like, how you balance all of that?
Do you mean right now?
No, like in the past when you do like fellowship and you also involving with the organization and all the dean stuff.
Yeah, you know, it seems like a different world, but we went to meetings. I mean, for the group on women in medicine and science that I served on for 5 years, we met in Washington 3 times a year. It just seems like, what is that? Like, meet in Washington? How do you do that? Yeah, I'm not sure how to answer that. I went to a lot of meetings. I was very busy. When I left Dartmouth, about a year later, I got a letter from the president of Dartmouth that was thanking me. And he said, you know, Sue, all you did, we've hired 3 FTEs. Do you guys know what an FTE is, full-time equivalent? So because I said yes to everything, and I was Dean for Diversity, and I taught medical students, and I, you know, had a busy clinical practice, and I did research, the components that I added on to myself over 15 years to keep them going, eventually they realized they had to hire 3 people. And that told me that I probably should have said no more and worried about my own. I mean, I'm proud of it, but I keep that letter to remind myself that how you do that, you add it on. And as women, we tend not to say no, and we want to be helpful, and that's a good thing. But we also, I'm learning need to be strategic. And I'm much better at mentoring younger women on saying no and being strategic about what they do. But I've learned it, but it took me a long time to learn it. So yes, emails, meetings, not saying no, working, so many hours a day, probably, not being as present at times with my kids. I mean, I don't live in regret, but because they're doing great, but yeah, you've all frozen. It might be me. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we could.
Okay.
That's cool.
Yep. My internet's been very funny. Oop, now I'm frozen. Ah. I'm going to turn my video off and try it again. See if I unfreeze. There we go. The joys of Zoom.
I had a quick question.
Chloe, I feel like you have something to say. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Hi, Delia.
Hi. So
yes, go ahead, Delia.
Okay. Maybe it's my internet also, it's glitching. You mentioned enjoying your classes in high school and in university, but was there a defining moment when you knew that you wanted to be a physician?
That's a good question. Definitely, I really enjoyed, well, this is bizarre, but organic chemistry, which was a bit of at the time I went through was if you don't do well in this, you're out. I loved organic chemistry. Now, have I ever used organic chemistry since then? No. That gave me confidence, and I volunteered, in the emergency room at a hospital, and I could see myself in the role. So that was really reaffirming. I don't know that there was a defining moment, but yeah, I knew I liked working with people. I think what I didn't sort out until later, I did well in college, and I'd applied to MD, PhD programs and got into them. And because that was the route for people that did well at the time. And I didn't take an MD, PhD spot. I didn't get it at UCSF, which was, at the time still is like premier, like a really, number one school. But at other schools, and somehow I knew, sometimes I look back and say, well, maybe I should have done that. I should have done a PhD. But I really enjoyed working with people, and I was best in the clinic, and I still miss that, because it is an art. And while there's best practices and, good physicians, you can be competent and qualified and know, but unless you're a good listener and want to do that, and it's so hard these days to not get bogged down with the excesses of the number of patients you have to see and the epic and electronic record, but that empathy, there's that old school art of medicine, and that's what I think I just related to that, and that has probably been the pinnacle of what I'm proud of and what I did. I don't know if that answered your question, but yeah.
No, definitely, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
I had a quick question. I was just wondering if you do any private practice, and if you don't, why not do private practice, or if you do, why did you start doing that instead of working solely for hospitals or larger universities?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I was in a very academic program. UCSF is pretty driven that way. I'd actually, been offered a position in my residency when I graduated with the premier cataract practice. And I thought about it, and I just thought, I want to teach. I want to be around medical students and residents. so it was just, I really liked being in academics because I liked the tough cases. I liked not really, although you still worry about your billing in academics because you've got to bill a certain amount, but I liked being at the university. And so that's why I went that route. But, you know, and actually my best friend from residency did end up taking the position I was offered in a premier practice in Northern California. I was just talking to her on the weekend, catching up on COVID life. And, you know, she's thriving and has so much more control over her life than I ever did in academics. So it's also a good route. She's actually still in a small practice, but because it's such the premier of Northern California, they can do that. It's getting tougher and tougher to do that. And depending on what you go into, I mean, you probably know even smaller pediatric practices in Arizona have been pretty much bought up, you know, or not even bought up, but Phoenix Children's Hospital is collecting them in just to have the power of numbers to connect to things. So it's a different landscape than when I came out of medical school or residency, but I think it will change in our lifetimes as you train, because it is our system is in such bad shape, and COVID only uncovers the huge inequities in healthcare. And you know, we need your generation to seize the day and fix it, or make it better at least. So
thank you so much.
Yeah.
I do have a question, because you're mentioning about like healthcare equity and stuff. So when you work in the hospital, like how do they like actually like salary you, and how do you deal with insurance and stuff? Do you have to deal with that a lot, or you just have to like deal with insurance from the hospital? And that
I was pretty privileged. When I was faculty at University of California, San Francisco, you know, I was salaried, and I didn't have to worry about whether my patients had insurance. I was really proud at Dartmouth because it was the same thing. I was salaried. I didn't get bonuses. I had a certain good salary, and the hospital did a lot of charity care. And they were worried. They wanted us to up our productivity, and they were paying attention. But the bottom line is, that's another thing about the time. Now, that's not true everywhere. A lot of academic places, you might get a base salary, and then the additional salary is depending on how many patients you see. I will say in Arizona, if you want to practice here, no matter what your field is, it is much more, everywhere is fee for service. But because, you know, we're very young in academic medicine, I mean, yeah, U of A, Tucson's been around for a while. So there are professors which found it very painful to go to Banner, or to be, you know, bought by Banner in their different economic, financial you know, structure. It is more of a do more, get paid more. So it's one of those things I didn't really think about. My abilities at the moment. Oops. I didn't even think so much about, because I didn't, you know, I went into medicine because I wanted to help people. I didn't, until I did my MPH, I really didn't have healthcare economics in my ken. I mean, I read a bit and how, you know, managed care was coming about and all, but it didn't affect me so much. Now, as a physician, to not have some, and later I worked on curriculum development at Dartmouth in law and ethics, and to not have some understanding of the economics is, you know, not a good thing. I mean, it wasn't a good thing then either when I went through, but it behooves one to really, you know, it's going to change. I mean, it needs to change. And, you know, we don't as physicians necessarily have the background in either the health economics, the ethics, the law that you really need, depending on what you want to do. So it's a big lift.
That's cool. So do you ever do anything with nonprofit? I'm just curious.
I do a lot because for 4+ years I was president of Piper Trust, where I interacted with all the nonprofits in healthcare and arts, and so I do a lot with nonprofits, and have been in Arizona in particular. I did less at Dartmouth because it wasn't my world, but I came to Arizona to run the foundation, and that meant full immersion in the social sector and nonprofit world.
So do you
I didn't get that as a physician. I got that because I was recruited here to run the foundation.
Yeah, that's cool. So do you like drop the project for them, or you work with them like financially?
I do in ways because I'm still involved with them. Yeah, I work with the ASU Foundation on some things. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Thank you.
And I'm on, I sit on the board for Vitalist Foundation, Health Foundation, and some other boards. Yeah.
That's nice. Yeah.
Well, I'd love to hear what like where you guys are at and how your ASU sector of AMWA is going, and like what you're thinking about doing and how you support each other, or how to be helpful. I mean, it's, obviously I haven't been involved in at ASU 2 years now, and I was thrilled to thank you to get the invite, because I thought, why am I not involved with them? This is like my DNA.
I guess the officers would go first. Like the president, you go ahead.
Yeah, so I guess like, were you asking about the club in general, or like just our individual stories?
Well, I'd love to hear your individual stories. I know we're limited on time, so I'm going to start with the club and how I could be more helpful to you or be involved, and where you're, what you're excited about.
Yeah, I think a lot of the things that I got out of this club, especially my freshman year and like my sophomore year as well, was just a lot of help from upperclassmen and people who have already been through it, just getting help, like, how do I get into research? How do I get involved in this sense? And like a lot of people in this club too are in a bunch of cool opportunities that they're always happy to share. So we try to do a lot of events like that. We're doing them later in the year as well, like where we just talk about how to get involved in different things there are at ASU to get involved with. And then we also, last year, well, of course, we're trying to figure it out with COVID this year and everything, but we also do like different skills training workshops and things. We partnered with the U of A College of Phoenix Medicine, and they have an AMWA chapter there, and they actually help us with a lot of different things. They had a suturing clinic with us. So yeah, different things like that.
Awesome.
I think if you did want to, if there was anything that you could help us with, I know a lot of people in our club are always looking for opportunities for shadowing. So if you happen to know of anyone who likes to have students or is willing to, we would love to hear their names.
Great. I think someone else was piping in.
Yeah, hi, I'm Julia. I'm the VP of Administration for AMWA. I was just kind of wanting to go off of what Ramya said, and to kind of answer your question too. One of the like big things about like our club, I think, is like hearing our speakers, and for me, kind of understanding the different paths that you can take is a huge thing, because I know when I came into college, like I came from a very small high school, and my thought process was there's one way to get there, and you do college and then you apply for med school, and hearing everyone's different stories of like they took a gap year or they did a bunch of different things in between med school has kind of allowed me to build confidence in myself with like my plan towards med school or just like any path that I want, and like it's not one right thing. So just for like everyone here too, like I think that's like a huge thing about our club. And then like thank you for coming and sharing, because just hearing like one more way to get there just kind of like relaxes me in a way, and kind of just lets me feel like I'm not doing anything wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, you're definitely not doing anything wrong.
Okay, so I guess it's my turn. So I'm a VP of Finance and I go by Emily, and I'm a sophomore. And since because I took like the special topic last semester with Professor Compton, that's when I learned a lot. There's so much more after medical school, because I was like Julia too. I was only have a mindset like, oh, I have to take the MCAT by junior year, get into med school right mid college. But then after taking that course, I realized that like I don't want to work in a hospital anymore, because like we have to do a lot of with like insurance, and then like a lot of people I know like they do business after that too, like outside, like doing hospital and doing private sector too. And I feel like that's so much, and I feel I discover more that I'm interested in like the healthcare business and the healthcare development. And I also learned from that course, as well as doing the research for women organization. I realized that like there is like there's people who go to medical school, but then they didn't like they get the MD and then they get master in public policy and then they work for the healthcare department, or they work for like the healthcare development program. And I think I want to go into that direction because I want to improve the healthcare system too. And I also learned that I am interested in finance as well as a public health and global health aspect. That's why I do the survey, because I want to learn more about it. And I met a lot of cool people. I met nurses who work for the public health, and I met people who actually work for public health. And when I was talking to her, she said that public health is very exhausting. I don't know if it's true, but that was she said. And she said like a lot of people who work for it so much, but they don't really get the money, or they like get whatever they deserve. And I feel like there's something needs to change. And I'm also interested in advocating for women as well, because I feel like women in all field, like STEM field, medical field, any field, that they need to be educated earlier, that education is important and you need to like focus on that. And then I feel like, and I am also interested in the differences between men and women, because I feel like that gap is very huge. And in order to like bridge that gap, like each other have to learn from each other differences and accept it and help each other out, rather than only like blaming on the other side, like, oh, why you do that and do that. So that's why I like right now I'm just like spreading all over. And that's when I decided like maybe I might take like 2 to 3 gap years, and I want to do something more with like the nonprofit and the public health and get in med school after. Yeah, because right now I'm taking a nonprofit like discover like seminar too. So that's why I asked you about nonprofit, because I know public health and global health, to do a lot with nonprofit.
Yeah.
So I'm in like the initial stuff, but I learn a lot.
Good. That's great.
Yeah. I guess Rachel or anyone want to go ahead?
Yeah, sorry. Hi, I'm Jessica. I'm the community service chair this year. My name is wrong. I don't know how to change it. I'm sorry.
Okay. Hi, Jessica. We'll go with that.
Thank you so much for coming. I love listening about all of the different ways to get involved with women's health and women empowerment in the medical field. And I'm planning on applying to med school very soon. I'm a senior right now. And AMWA has just been like a really great opportunity for me to meet like amazing women like you and other totally inspirational people that make me feel like I can do this, and give me all of their wisdom and advice that they possibly can. And, you know, it makes me a lot less scared about starting a family and, you know, having children as a doctor too, because I know that's like a very scary thing. So I love hearing, you know, all the stories and hearing that we can do it. And there's people out there fighting for the chance for us to do it, because that's really important too. I'd love to hear more about like how you think the medical community could like change to improve the quality of life for physicians as well too. If you have like any input on that, because I'm currently working in like an emergency department too, and I've been hearing like all of the same sorts of complaints that like you've kind of expressed about how every year you're expected to see more and more patients each shift, and how there's more like responsibility placed on like the individual as a doctor. And while it's beneficial for the hospital, like economically, it's not really, it's causing a lot more like burnout and a lot of like problems that way. And I'm curious to see like what we can do to change that as the next generation, and like, what direction we need to go in to do that.
Yeah.
Anything?
Well, it's a great question, Jessica, and I'd love to talk more about that. I'm conscious of the time. I don't need to go, but you know, given your chapter of AMWA, that would be a great specific topic to spend, you know, an hour on, like focused on that topic, because there's a lot there and there's a lot to be done. And, you know, it's going to be your generation that gets it done. And, you know, you throw COVID on top of that, and the burnout was already there. And I've had this sense since I was an undergrad, and now I really feel it, that we don't advocate enough for ourselves. Like, we advocate economically in terms of our views and reimbursement, but we, overall as a body, and of course there's such diversity and difference of opinions, but we could do more. And you know, I'd love to see more doctors run for office, because policy change is really the most powerful thing. So.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I hope to see like some sort of change in the future, and I really think it's like gonna get that way.
Yeah, we need to do it, and I'd love to chat more, be part of your conversation at ASU, talking about that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, for me, this has been delightful. I wish we were in the same room. I wish we had 4 hours. I appreciate you asking me to talk to you. I hope I made some sense. I don't know, but definitely I would love to engage more. And thank you for inviting me and listening to my story. You know, I'm not great at talking about myself, but I do it only to connect and to support all of you. I'm really excited for all of you and would love to be helpful in any way I can.
Thank you so much for coming in. We all really love to hear you talk. Like, it was a very unique experience. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, thank you. You're very inspirational. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you. My pleasure. You know, ask me back sometime.
Yeah, we'd definitely love to.
Okay. All right, you all. Have good evenings. Thanks.
Take care.
You too. Bye.
All right. Thank you all for coming. You guys are welcome to stay if you have any questions to ask us or anything. I really liked her. She was so cool.
Yeah, she done a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really liked her.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you guys for putting together. See you next meeting.
Yeah, take care.
Bye.
I guess we are good into the next officer meeting.
Yep, we're good.
Okay, peace. Take care.
Night.
Ask a quick question.
I think I just realized something. Should I tell you or should I wait until the officer meeting?
Hold on, wait. Miriam, did you have something?
Yeah, actually, I did. So I jumped in a little bit late to this meeting, and everything that like Dr. Pepin was saying was like, even as like when I came in late, was incredible. Like, I absolutely loved her. I loved her experiences. I just wanted to share that. And then also, I was wondering, so as like a pre-med, also like a first generation college student, I often feel like I'm just like, stumbling in the dark here. And I'm like, okay, am I putting my time in the right places? Am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? So I was wondering, and like, I also have like really high goals. Like the reason that like Dr. Pepin resonated so much with me was because like Dartmouth is actually like my goal. I feel like if I were able to attend there, like I would be the best physician that I could be. So like, which brings me to my question, like, would you guys happen to know of any resources where I can like sit down with people and just like explain to them what I'm doing, and for them to like kind of like give me some insight if I'm like, not if I'm doing the right thing, because I know each person's experience is unique, but I also feel like there are some, I guess, things where I should be better putting my time, but I just have no idea like what to do or how to do that. So would you guys happen to know of any resources like that? Or
my best advice, no, my question for you is, are you in the pre-health 101 of ASU organization? Are you like receiving the newsletter, or you attend any like workshop? Do you have a 101 to the advisor meeting?
Yeah, I did have a one-on-one meeting with the advisor, and it was great, but it was also a little bit I mean, like, I don't know. My phone.
So my question for you is, do you ever like have a Google Doc, or you have like a paper that you write down like what you accomplished, like what you volunteer hour and stuff like that?
Yes,
and you track part of it?
Yep. Yeah, I have that, and I also write down like whenever like, inspiration hits me, I guess, if we can call that, like, like personal statement ideas, or why I feel like I'm going into this field and things like that. And I'm just like, I'm trying to make myself a strong applicant, but I have no idea if I'm actually doing that, or if I'm just like tiring myself out and throwing myself into all these different activities. Like, I just feel like I need insight in that department, if that makes sense. Like, also, am I asking in the right place, or is there somewhere else where I should ask? Because like, honestly, like, this is my first meeting as well. I've been wanting to join this club since like my first semester, after like taking cancer with Dr. Compton. Oh, I love her, she's so cool. But yeah, I'm going off on a tangent. What you guys?
No, you're fine. Do you mind if I ask like what grade are you in right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a sophomore.
Oh, okay. That's me too. So did you take any course like special topic from Professor Compton?
No, I haven't. This semester I was pretty packed, but I was planning on taking it like eventually in the future, but I just haven't.
You definitely should take that course, but this semester she doesn't. But I know she's gonna just try to make another one next semester, so watch out for the pre-health newsletter. And my question, like, you should take that course because that changed a lot. Like, that changed me a lot. That's why I divert my whole direction from like going to medical school immediately after college. Now I'm taking gap years. That's gonna change a lot. And well, from my perspective, I think like you should like following like medical student or following like doctor on Instagram or social media, because they go in depth a lot of things that you never expected. Like they go to like daily activity into how they feel, and they're like a whole different range of like specialty up there. That's how I realized I was interested in many different thing, also interested in healthcare too. So you just have to do a lot of more research on your own, and you talk to a lot of people.
Okay. All right.
I don't know about other people advisor, especially senior, because they might have more. So go ahead.
I mean, are there like specific things that you want to talk about? Because there's definitely so many people in AMWA that we could either send you as resources to, like us as officer board, we may have resources that we could help you with. Is there anything in specific, or is it just like you want to go through everything you've been doing and see like, am I on the right track, sort of thing?
Honestly, a mix of that. I would really love to like do it like what you said, like just go through like the list of like what I've been doing. That is something that like I really want to do, but also what you were saying, like general information as well. I mean, like I did go to like, pre-health 101, pre-health, I think it's 201 or 102. I went to both of them. And then I also, met with the pre-health advisor pretty regularly, but I just feel like I want to get like these, like this information from people who are like in the field, like accomplishing what, like who have accomplished what I want to accomplish. Like, I feel like getting it from them would be an incredible resource. And I feel like that would really help me a lot. So I just, yeah, exactly what you said then. I go on tangents a lot. So yeah, I'd like to sit down and meet with somebody one-on-one and kind of go through what I've been doing. Somebody who preferably has achieved what I want to achieve. And that is, getting accepted into an excellent medical school, particularly Dartmouth, because it's my dream.
Yeah. I mean, I personally don't know anyone at Dartmouth, so I couldn't set you up there. But I definitely agree with what Emily was saying about like try to go on YouTube and see if there is a medical student, because there's always people who like so many medical students. It may not be at Dartmouth, but it could be like a very similar program, and you can like see their journey through everything. And a lot of them post like videos like, oh, my undergraduate story and that kind of thing. So I think that would be really helpful. And then later on in the year, we could definitely have like medical students or pre-health or actual like PA students, anything like that, come in and talk to us about their medical journey as well. We actually have our two people who were on our officer board last year, Kelsey and Juliana. They are very willing to come and talk to us. They're both at Mayo Medical School this year.
Oh, wow.
So we'll probably definitely have them come in and speak about their journey and everything.
Okay, that sounds great. Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right, yeah, it was so nice to meet you.
Nice meeting you too. Have a good one.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Thing I want to say is the budgeting get approved. So I guess we can talk about it during the officer meeting.
It got approved?
Yeah, it just got approved today.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, we will talk about that on Monday.
Okay, next Monday. Okay,
Oh,
I keep that in mind. Okay, stay safe.
All right, you guys have a good night.
All right. Now, bye.